Hello, beauties. Welcome to Moms Unboxed, a podcast where I unbox with you the how-tos, tips, and tricks to empower women to upgrade relationships, intimacy, and parenting. I'm your host, Melanie Caroline, a multi-dimensional woman, life coach, lover, and mom who's made a lot of fucking mistakes. If you want to live a sensual and liberated life, you've come to the right space. Don't forget to follow Moms Unboxed because you don't want to miss an episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Moms Unboxed. How are you mamas doing this week? I hope that you're having a good week, and if you're not, I trust that it'll turn around for you. What are we talking about this week? Well, before we get to that, just let me press pause. Last week, we chatted about young women's and women's older women's ability, all women's ability to say no, especially when it comes to abiding by or being requested to meet a man's sexual needs. Now, this story came about because I was at Watershed and some of the younger ladies had stories about how these young men would just go up and start making out with them and things would happen so quickly and they didn't feel that they could say no. And I want to let every woman know it doesn't matter how old you are. You always have the ability to say no. There are women out there who have been programmed from childhood to be a people pleaser. And people pleasers oftentimes wear different masks to fit in. They have a difficult time advocating for themselves. They say yes, even when they want to say no, to keep the peace. And women who are people pleasers struggle to see their value, their strength, their will. And I want to make sure that by the end of this episode, you feel empowered enough to say no. So if you know any mamas or women out there who are struggling to say no, to advocate for themselves, to feel empowered and bold and brave, send this episode to them. Your share means the world to me. Now, I know what it's like to be a people pleaser because I am going through people pleaser recovery and I'm doing really well. And for me, people pleaser in recovery is a person who people pleases their way through life to keep the peace, to make amends, to make everyone happy, to being able to say no and advocate for themselves. And not only being able to say no, but to process and deal with the feelings of feeling like you're letting someone down. Because let's face it, it's not as easy as saying no. When you're a people pleaser, you're also living with the guilt of telling someone no and feeling bad for perhaps not making them happy, hurting their feelings, not going in the direction that they wanted to go. So you just, you feel horrible for it. When we become this person that advocates for themselves, we also have to process the feelings and emotions of what it's like to feel like you're letting someone down. I was having this conversation with someone I love dearly, and she was struggling with not wanting to show up for an event because it could trigger an ex in their relationship. And here's what I told her. I said, we cannot be responsible for someone else's relationship, and we cannot be responsible for how someone else processes their emotions. We can be mindful of how we speak to a person, how we say no to a person. Our message and delivery is very important, especially when you are learning to communicate and advocate for yourself. But what's not our responsibility is how that person receives it. If they're mad at you and you've been extremely mindful and delicate of their feelings, their emotions, you're advocating for yourself in a very kind way, if they're upset with you, honey, that's on them. You cannot take responsibility for another person. You can only take responsibility for yourself, and taking responsibility for yourself is advocating for yourself. Before we get into different ways that we can advocate for ourselves, let's talk for a moment about why someone struggles to speak out for themselves. Why do we become people pleasers? Well, in my childhood, I became a people pleaser to keep the peace, to keep people happy with me, to not go against the grain too much, because I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of yelling and of fighting, and there wasn't a lot of conversations or healthy communication. And it's funny because my sister grew up rebellious, speaking out, using her voice, throwing a fucking fit if she didn't agree with something. Like, she had this uncanny ability to advocate. When she was younger, it wasn't through communication that was healthy most of the time, right? There's even from her yelling, and that's how we grew up communicating. But I, on the other hand, grew up very much a people pleaser, trying to keep the peace. I didn't want the yelling. I didn't want the screaming and the fighting. And so my people pleasing was continuous, and it would get so bad where I'd ruminate and perseverate on why someone wasn't happy with me, why my sister was mad at me, why my dad was mad at me. And it would take over my thoughts for hours, days, sometimes weeks on end. And I struggled a lot, and I was very lonely in my head. And this followed me through toxic relationships. So I'd get in these relationships and I would be the people pleaser. I'd try to keep the peace, try to make them happy. Anytime I did try to advocate for myself, I would be physically abused and yelled at and spit at. And then I was repressed even more to never speak out. My dad always told me I was to be seen and not heard. And that literally has carried me through my early 30s. Trying to make people happy didn't make me happy, and I was fucking miserable. And oftentimes people pleasers wear these masks and they don't show their feelings or express their emotions, and they're closed off from themselves. They're out of touch with their bodies. They're out of touch with who they are as a person, because they've tried to mask themselves so much for other people to fit in so that they can be liked. It's just something that I really want all women to grow out of. So if you are a people pleaser, just know that you're not alone, and your ability to heal and to take off these masks that you wear and to advocate for yourself, to say no, it's possible for you. And the first things that we want to do is understand what it is that we like, what it is in life that you are not enjoying. Just really identifying and investigating the areas within yourself that you'd like to shift, the areas in your life where you can change, so that's in alignment with what you want. If there's someone that is hurting you or isn't taking your feelings into consideration, how can you bridge that gap and communicate with that person? So it's taking these small steps to advocate for yourself, to understand what it is that you need for you. And once you can identify those things, that's when you can start communicating. And these small steps towards communicating or shifting yourself and your life, it just takes 1% at a time. You don't have to have the big conversation right now. And when you take those small steps, you start building courage and bravery, and you start showing your mind and your body that it's safe to advocate for yourself. Part of the reason why people pleasers don't advocate for themselves is because they don't feel safe to do so. They've been punished for advocating for themselves. And when we are punished in some way, we put up these walls to protect ourselves from being hurt. And part of that is like repressing our own needs, wants, and desires. So we have to take these small steps to show ourselves that it is safe to advocate for yourself. It is safe to say no. And when we start this, we take bigger steps to advocate for ourselves. Well, I was safe at having this small conversation. Now let me have this larger conversation and ability to say no when I'm needing to. So you want to build that foundation of self-awareness. You want to investigate what it is I like, what is in alignment with my life right now, what isn't in alignment with right now, who in my life could be treating me better, who in my life am I people pleasing to, where is it I am wearing a mask. Journal out some of these questions so that you could really understand who you are in this present moment in time and who it is you want to be. What does that future self look like? And how does she advocate for herself? How does she say no? How does she communicate? And start really embodying these things. Perhaps then write down some of the skill sets that you need in order to advocate for yourself. Then in your communication, you want to identify, how can I communicate better? Is it to use more I statements? Is it to be mindful of my tone of voice? Do I interrupt? Am I argumentative? Do I get defensive? People who people please, when they're coming out of this like people pleaser version of themselves, it's easy for us to get defensive because we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to make other people feel wrong or hurt their feelings. And so like we often can sometimes retract from a statement. Like you say, oh no, I'd rather go to the splash park. And then your partner doesn't want to do that. And you're like, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. And then it just kind of turns and it can sometimes snowball into an argument because you're both trying to like please each other. So just being really conscious and clear about what it is you want and not going backwards from that. Standing firm in your power. That can be as simple as deciding what activity you want to do today. Or it can be, what trip you want to go on, or how do you want to save the money for your bank account? These topics vary in severity of how you're going to advocate for yourself. And when you have practice assertiveness within your communication, it gets easier because you're building that courage a little bit over each time that you advocate for what it is you want. Another part of being able to advocate for yourself and honing in that skill to communicate is also your ability to listen. So are you listening to your intuition? Are you trusting your own inner guidance? And are you practicing mindful listening with your partner and your children? That means you're becoming aware of your own thoughts. Are you getting defensive or coming up with a response in your own head before someone's even done talking? Because as soon as we start coming up with our own response when the other person is not done talking, we stop listening. You might hear the words that they're saying, but you're not really processing what it is they're saying because you're thinking about you and your thoughts. So advocating is just as important as your ability to listen to the speaker. It enhances everyone's communication ability when you're able to listen and respond mindfully. So think about that this week. When you talk to your partner or your children, are you truly listening to what they have to say? Because when we get better at advocating for ourselves, we get better at listening, we demonstrate this to our family, and we also encourage our children to mindfully listen and to tactfully speak. There's been so many times that I've gotten defensive, I've been argumentative, I stop listening, I start making out what the speaker is saying to mean something else. How many of y'all done that? Like you're hearing something, but the way you're receiving it is nothing like what the speaker is trying to relay. In those situations, it's really good to repeat back what you think you've heard. Perhaps you're the speaker and you're being misinterpreted. Asking your partner or the kids, like, hey, can you tell me what you think you heard with what mommy just said? And really get an idea of how your children reframe things in their mind or how they receive messages. Even with your partner, when you're having difficult conversation and you feel like the energy is tense or they're being defensive, it's a really good idea to ask your partner, hey, what is it you think I said? I would love to hear your perspective on what it is I spoke and see if it matches. Listening mindfully and understanding what the speaker is relaying is a very important part of advocating for yourself. Because if you're advocating for yourself for the wrong reasons, that's not beneficial and it could cause further damage, right? Within your communication and in your relationships. If you are struggling with advocating for yourself, I want you to know that it's possible that your throat chakra is blocked. So the throat chakra is an energy center that lives in your throat. So if you ever try to advocate for yourself or you're put into a position where you want to say no and you have to practice saying no and you feel that your neck muscles are just getting super tight or your airway feels closed off and you're just like, I can't speak. That is an indicator that your throat chakra needs to be cleared. And when we have a clear throat chakra, we could take nice, long, big breaths. We feel like we can express ourselves. We also have a better ability to listen. So the throat chakra isn't just about speaking, using your voice, and advocating for yourself, but it also has to do with your ability to receive messages, to listen to what other people have to say. So right now, let's just do a practice to open your throat. So I want you, obviously, if you're driving, don't do this right now, but I want you to place one hand on your throat and just inhale and exhale. And I want you to be very mindful of what that feels like. Do you feel like you are short breathed? Does it feel like you can take a nice big long inhale, exhale? What does the air in your throat feel like? Is it restricted? Is it open? With me right now, let's just inhale. And exhale. So given what that felt like, let's do some la la la's. We're going to open up our throat. We're going to allow that airway to open a bit. And we're going to use our voice and just pay attention to how soft your voice is coming out or how loud it's coming out. Does it feel uncomfortable for you? Is this weird or is this something you practice on the daily? So let's just la's, opening up the throat, taking a nice big inhale and exhale. La 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 la. How did that feel for you? Was it like, no, this is dumb? That's probably an indicator your throat chakra is blocked or restricted at least. Was it easy for you? Let me know at Moms Unboxed podcast on Instagram. I would love to hear what this feels like for you. So opening up that throat chakra, you can do those la's. You can do humming while opening up your mouth, letting the vibrations just move through your throat while also, right, your hand is still on your throat. So you're feeling the vibrations coming through your hand too. And that's another indicator. Like, can you feel it or can you not feel it? You can sing in the shower, sing in the car, sing in your office. Where is it you feel most comfortable? And just practice singing. See how quiet you are, how loud you get, what notes and frequencies can you touch with your vocal cords. And then if you want to do a mantra, you can do a mantra. Place both hands on your throat and inhaling, exhaling, and just saying, I am strong, my throat is open, and I can advocate for myself. I am strong, my throat is open, and I can advocate for myself. Inhale and exhale. I am strong, my throat is open, and I can advocate for myself. Inhaling and exhaling. I am strong, my throat is open, and I can advocate for myself. Inhaling and exhaling. So there's various ways that you can open your throat so that you can start speaking and using your voice. In fact, when I started this podcast, let me rewind. Before I started this podcast, I was not advocating for myself. I was not using my voice. I felt very closed off. I felt very small. And I started blogging, just writing. And I was like, this isn't it. This is not it. I still feel repressed. I still feel closed off from the world. I don't shine my light. I'm still in my cave hiding. And so I started the podcast, not for anyone but myself, because I really, really wanted to use my voice and express myself. And fucking here we are, 55 episodes in, and I'm still speaking and using my voice. And I love that for me, and I would love that for you. So any way that you can just start speaking, advocating for yourself, practicing in the mirror even. If you're not comfortable with having a conversation with someone, speak in the mirror. Talk to yourself. Tell yourself how fucking beautiful you are, how badass you are, the strength that you have within yourself to advocate for yourself, to shift your life is all within you. You have to believe that. You have to speak it out into existence, and you have to give yourself the opportunities to advocate for yourself. Put yourself in situations where you have to say no to other people, or you say yes. And that's advocating for yourself too. In the context of last week's episode, saying no is extremely powerful. Stop overbooking your schedule because you feel obligated to appease everyone. Stop saying no to self-care because you feel like you don't have the time because you want to clean 5 times a day. Definitely say no to that. Say no to cleaning 5 times a day. Definitely hold your boundaries with your children. Be able to say no without the mom guilt. I have a friend right now. He's like the neighborhood dad. Shout out to you if you are listening, Chris. But I just like, he's so kind and so sweet. And he's the neighborhood dad. And he struggles to have boundaries with the neighborhood kids. He'll be exhausted cooking them all dinner, letting them play in the pool. And I love that. It's like, I mean, I said, it's amazing and sweet. But his ability to say no and advocate for himself and take care of himself is something that he struggles with. And I'm like, how relatable, right? Because many moms feel that way. We struggle to say no to our own children, let alone saying no to like the neighborhood kids that come over, eat all the food and do all the things. And we love it. We love it to a certain extent. And it's about the time where you're feeling exhausted and you just want to lay down that you need to uphold the boundaries. And moms who are people pleasers really struggle with that. So that's why it's so important to practice saying no, not today. Or, hey, there's going to be a time limit tonight. Y'all can't stay around till 9 o'clock at night. You have to leave at 6 because I got to get to bed early. That's okay to say. You're not ruining their whole summer because you put a boundary on one night. So practice humming, singing, chanting, doing the mantras, speaking in the mirror to yourself, having the tough conversation. Practice saying no, practice saying yes, because you're a fracking badass, mama. You have so much strength and bravery within yourself to advocate. You can work on your communication. You can work on those I statements. You can work on taking responsibility for your wants, needs, and desires. And you can do it with kindness and love. And if someone's mad at you for saying no, honey, that's for them to process. That's not your responsibility. And I have such a great example of someone who advocated for their audience. Big shout out to Russ. That concert was absolutely amazing. And within the first song, he was stopping the whole show because he saw someone in his audience flash their light because someone had passed out. Russ stopped his show 4 times because the security was not securitying. Russ was looking out for his audience, being the security, and that showed that he really truly cared about the enjoyment and safety of his audience. And there was some people in the pit getting into a fight. He had to stop his show. People passed out. He had to stop his show. Big respect to Russ for being able to advocate not only for himself and for what he paid for, which was the security, right? But also his ability to advocate for his audience. Like, I absolutely fucking love that. Big respect to Russ. And so that's the level we want to be at, right? It doesn't matter if we're famous, we're not famous, we have money or we don't have money, is being able to advocate for ourselves, not only for ourselves, but for those around us. All right, mamas, that is it for this week. I hope that this episode helped you. And please send this episode to another mama, a friend, a woman who also struggles advocating for themselves. Take off the people pleaser mask. Love yourself. Know your own inner strength. Your desires, needs, and wants are worth it. We have this one lifetime to live. Don't live it for other people. I love you, and don't forget to live a liberated, sensual, and unboxed life. Until the next time, sunshine. Thank you again for joining me for another episode of Moms Unboxed. If you have a topic or relationship question, connect with me at I am Melanie Caroline. And don't forget to follow Moms Unboxed. May you live a liberated, sensual, and unboxed life. I'll be chatting with you next Wednesday for another episode. Until the next time, sunshine.